This man, Rabbit sees, is a boy. The patch of goatee is all he can grow. Harry does not like him. He likes Babe, he thinks, even though she has dried hard, a prune on the bottom of the box. In here they are all on the bottom of the box. This drink and his hand are the whitest thing around. Not to think of the other's tongue. He sips. Too sweet, wicked. A thin headache promptly begins. Buchanan is persisting. Don't seem right to me. Healthy big man living alone with nobody now to comfort him. The goatee bobs. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. Gives the man time to think, right? Gets the thought of cunt off his back, right? Chances are he has some hobby he can do, like woodwork. He explains to Babe. Like a lot of these Peckerwoods have this clever thing they can do down in their basements, like stamp collecting, right? That's how they keep making it big. Cleverness, right? He taps his skull, whose narrowness is padded by maybe an inch of tight black wool. The texture reminds Rabbit of his mother's crocheting, if she had used tiny metal thread. Her blue bent hands now. Even in here, family sadness pokes at him, makes sore holes. I used to collect baseball cards, he tells them. He hopes to excite enough rudeness from them so he can leave. He remembers the cards' bubblegum smell, their silken feel from the powdered sugar. He sips the stinger. Babe sees him make a face. You don't have to drink that piss. She nudges her neighbor again. Let's have one more stick. Woman, you must think I'm made of hay. I know you're plenty magical, that's one thing. Off that uptight shit. The old fay here needs a lift, and I'm nowhere near spaced enough to pee for 'em. Last drag, he says, and passes her the tiny wet butt. She crushes it into the sunflower beer ashtray. This roach is hereby dead, and holds her thin hand palm up for a hit. Buchanan is clucking. Mother love, go easy on yourself, he tells Babe. The other Negro is lighting a cigarette. The paper is twisted at the end and flares, subsides. He passes it to her, saying, Waste is a sin, right? Hush now. This honey man needs to loosen up. I hate to see 'em sad. I always have. They aren't like us. They don't have the insides to accommodate it. They's like little babies that way. They passes it off to someone else. She is offering Rabbit the cigarette, moist end toward him. He says, No thanks, I gave up smoking 10 years ago. Buchanan chuckles, with thumb and forefinger, smooths his mustache sharper. The boy says, They're going to live forever, right? Babe says, This ain't any of that nicotine shit. This weed is kindness itself. While Babe is coaxing him, Buchanan and the boy diagonally discuss his immortality. My daddy used to say down home you never did see a dead white man any more'n you'd see a dead mule. God's on their side, right? God's white, right? He doesn't want no more Charlies up there to cut into his take. He has it just fine the way it is, him and all those black angels out in the cotton. Your mouth's gonna hurt you, boy. The man is the lay of the land down here. Whose black ass you hustling, hers or yours? You just keep your smack in the heel of your shoe. Babe is saying, You suck it in as far as it'll go and hold it down as long as you absolutely can. It needs to mix with you. Rabbit tries to comply, but coughing undoes every puff. Also, he is afraid of getting hooked, of being suddenly jabbed with a needle, of starting to hallucinate because of something dropped into his stinger. Autopsy ordered in friendly lounge death. Coroner notes strange color of skin. Watching him cough, the boy says, He is beautiful. I didn't know they still came with all those corners. Right out of the cracker box, right? This angers Rabbit enough to keep a drag down. It burns his throat and turns his stomach. He exhales with the relief of vomiting and waits for something to happen. Nothing. He sips the stinger, but now it tastes chemical like the bottom of that milkshake. He wonders how he can get out of here. Is Peggy's offer still open? Just to feel the muggy kiss of summer night on the brewer streets would be welcome. Nothing feels worse than other people's good times. Babe asks Buchanan, What'd you have in mind, Buck? She is working on the joint now, and the smoke includes her eyes. The fat man's shrug jiggles Rabbit's side. "No big plans," Buchanan mutters. "See what develops. Woman, where you're going, you won't be able to tell those black keys from the white." She plumes smoke into his face. "Who owns who?" The boy cuts in. "Ofe doesn't dig he's a John, right?" Buchanan, his smoothness jammed, observes, "That mouth again." Rabbit, tired of all this, asks loudly, "What else shall we talk about?" and twiddles his fingers at Babe for the joint. Inhaling still burns, but something is starting to mesh. He feels his height above the others as a good, a lordly thing. Buchanan is probing the other two. "Jill in tonight?" Babe says, "Left her back at the place." The boy asks, "On a nod, right?" "You stay away here. She got herself clean." "She's on no nod, just tired from mental confusion, from fighting her signs." "Clean?" the boy says. "What's clean?" "White is clean, right? Cunt is clean, right? Shit is clean, right? There's nothing not clean the law don't go pointing its finger at, right?" "Wrong," Babe says. "Hate is not clean. A boy like you with hate in his heart, he needs to wash." "Wash is what they said to Jesus, right?" "Who's Jill?" Rabbit asks. "Wash is what Pilate said he thought he might go do, right? Don't go saying clean to me, Babe. That's one darky bag they had us in too long." Buchanan is still delicately prying at Babe. "She coming in?" The other cuts in. "She'll be in. Can't keep that cunt away. Put locks on the doors, she'll ooze in the leather slot." Babe turns to him in mild surprise. "Now you loves little Jill. You can love what you don't like, right?" Babe hangs her head. "That poor baby," she tells the tabletop, "just going to hurt herself and anybody standing near." Buchanan speaks slowly, threading his way. "Just thought man might like to meet Jill." The boy sits up. Electricity, reflected from the bar and the streets, spins around his spectacle rims. "Gonna match 'em up," he says. "You're gonna cut yourself in on an all-honky fuck. You can out-devil these devils any day, right? You could have out-niggered Moses on the hill." He seems to be ecstatic, the other two put up with. Buchanan is still prying at Babe across the table. "Just thought," he shrugs, "two birds with one stone." A tear falls from her creased face to the tabletop. Her hair is done tight back like a schoolgirl's, a ribbon in back, a part straight as a knife on her skull. It must hurt with kinky hair. "Going to take herself down all the way. It's in her signs. Can't slip your signs." "Who's that voodoo supposed to boogaboo?" the boy asks. "Whitey here got so much science he don't even need to play the numbers, right?" Rabbit asks, "Is Jill white?" The boy tells the two others angrily, "Cut the croonin', she'll be here. Christ, where else would she go, right? We're the blood to wash her sins away, right? Clean. Shit, that burns me. There's no dirt made that cunt won't swallow. With a smile on her face, right? Because she's clean." There seems to be not only a history but a theology behind his anger. Rabbit sees this much, that the other two were working to fix him up with this approaching cloud, this Jill, who will be pale like the stinger and poisonous. He announces, "I think I'll go soon." Buchanan swiftly squeezes his forearm. "What do you want to do that for, Brer Rabbit? You haven't achieved your objective, friend." "My only objective was to be polite." Ooze through the letter slot. Haunted by this image and the smoke inside him, he feels he can lift up from the booth, pass across Buchanan's shoulders like a shawl, and out the door. Nothing can hold him, not Mom, not Janice. He could slip a posse dribbling, Tothero used to flatter him. "You going to go off half-cocked?" Buchanan warns. "You ain't heard Babe play," the other man says. He stops, rising. "Babe plays?" She is flustered, stares at her thin, ringless hands, fiddles, mumbles. "Let him go. Let the man run. I don't want him to hear me." The boy teases her. "Babe, now, what sort of bad black act you putting on? He wants to hear you do your thing, your darky thing, right? You did the spooky card-reading bit, and now you can do the banjo bit, and maybe you can do the hot mama bit afterwards, but it doesn't look like it right now, right? Ease off, nigger," she says, face still bent low. Sometime you going to lean too hard. Rabbit asks her shyly, You play the piano? He gives me bad vibes, Babe confesses to the two black men. Those knuckles of his aren't too good. Bad shadows in there. Buchanan surprises Harry by reaching and covering her thin, bare hands with one of his broadened big pressman's hands, a ring of milk blue jade on one finger, battered bright copper on another. His other arm reaches around Harry's shoulders, heavy. Suppose you was him, he says to Babe. How would that make you feel? Bad, she says. As bad as I feel anyway. Play for me, Babe, Rabbit says in the lovingness of Pot, and she lifts her eyes to his and lets her lips pull back on long yellow teeth and gums the color of rhubarb stems. Men, Babe gaily drawls, they sure can retail the shit. She pushes herself out of the booth, hobbling in her comb-red dress, and crosses through a hen-scratch of applause to the piano, painted as if by children in silver swirls. She signals to the bar for Ruth to turn on the blue spot, and bows stiffly once, grudging the darkness around her, a smile, and after a couple of runs to burn away the fog, plays. What does Babe play? All the good old ones. All show tunes. Up a Lazy River, You're the Tops, Thou Swell, Summertime, you know. There are hundreds, thousands. Men from Indiana wrote them in Manhattan. They flow into each other without edges, flowing under black bridges of chords thumped 6, 7 times, as if Babe is helping the piano to remember a word it won't say, or spanking the silence, or saying, Here I am, find me, find me. Her hands, all brown bone, hang on the keyboard hushed like gloves on a table. She gazes up through blue dust to get herself into focus. She lets her hands fall into another tune. My Funny Valentine. Smoke gets in your eyes. I Can't Get Started. Starting to hum along with herself now, lyrics born in some distant smoke, decades when Americans moved within the American dream, laughing at it, starving on it, but living it, humming it, the national anthem everywhere. Wise guys and hicks, straw boaters and bib overalls, fast bucks, broken hearts, penthouses in the sky, shacks by the railroad tracks, ups and downs, rich and poor, trolley cars, and the latest news by radio. This book is continued on cassette number 4, side 1. Wise guys and hicks, straw boaters and bib overalls, fast bucks, broken hearts, penthouses in the sky, shacks by the railroad tracks, ups and downs, rich and poor, trolley cars, and the latest news by radio. Rabbit had come in on the end of it, as the world shrank like an apple going bad, and America was no longer the wisest hick town within a boat ride of Europe, and Broadway forgot the tune, but here it all still was, in the music Babe played, the little stairways she climbed and came tap-dancing down, twinkling and black, and there is no other music, not really, though Babe works in some Beatles songs, Yesterday and Hey Jude, doing it rinky-tink, her own style of ice to rattle in the glass. As Babe plays, she takes on swaying and leaning backwards. At her arm's ends, the standards go root back into ragtime. Rabbit sees circus tents and fireworks and farmers' wagons and an empty sandy river running so slow the sole motion is catfish sleeping beneath the golden skin. The boy leans forward and murmurs to Rabbit, You want ass, right? You can have her. 50 gets you her all night. All ways you can think up. She knows a lot. Sunk in her music, Rabbit is lost. He shakes his head and says, She's too good. Good, man. She gotta live, right? This place don't pay her shit. Babe has become a railroad prune-head bobbing napkin of jewels flashing blue, music rolling through crazy places, tunnels of dissonance and open stretches of the same tinny thin note bleeding itself into the sky, all sad power and happiness worn into holes like shoe soles. From the dark booths around, voices call out in a mutter, Go, Babe, and do it, do it. The spidery boys in the adjacent room are frozen around the green felt. Into the mic that is there no bigger than a lollipop, She begins to sing. Sings in a voice that is no woman's voice at all, and no man's, is merely human, the words of Ecclesiastes. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to gather up stones, a time to cast stones away. Yes, the Lord's last word. There is no other word, not really. Her singing opens up, grows enormous, frightens Rabbit with its enormous black maw of truth, yet makes him overjoyed that he is here. He brims with joy to be here with these black others. He wants to shout love through the darkness of Babe's noise to the sullen brother in goatee and glasses. He brims with this itch, but does not spill. For Babe stops, as if suddenly tired or insulted. Babe breaks off the song and shrugs and quits. That is how Babe plays. She comes back to the table, stooped, trembling, nervous, old. "That was beautiful, Babe," Rabbit tells her. "It was," says another voice. A small white girl is standing there, prim in a white dress, casual and dirty as smoke. "Hey, Jill," Buchanan says. "Hi, Buck. Skeeter, hi." So Skeeter is his name. He scowls and looks at the cigarette, of which there is not even butt enough to call a roach. "Jilly, love," Buchanan says, standing until his thighs scrape the table edge, "allow me to introduce Harry the Rabbit Angstrom. He works at the printing plant with me, along with his daddy." Jill asks, "Where is his daddy?" still looking at Skeeter, who will not look at her. "Jilly, you go sit in here where I am," Buchanan says. "I'll go get a chair from Ruth." "Down, baby," Skeeter says. "I'm splittin'." No one offers to argue with him. Perhaps they are all as pleased as Rabbit to see him go. Buchanan chuckles. He rubs his hands. His eyes keep in touch with all of them, even though Babe seems to be dozing. He says to Jill, "How about a beverage? A 7-Up? Ruth can make a lemonade, even." "Nothing," Jill says. Tea party manner, hands in lap, thin arms, freckles. Rabbit scents in her a perfume of class. She excites him. "Maybe she'd like a real drink," he says. With a white woman here, he feels more in charge. Negroes, you can't blame them, haven't had his advantages. Slave ships, cabins, sold down the river, Ku Klux Klan, James Earl Ray. Channel 44 keeps having those documentaries all about it. "I'm underage," Jill tells him politely. Rabbit says, "Who cares?" She answers, "The police?" "Not up the street they wouldn't mind so much," Buchanan explains, "if the girl halfway acted the part. But down here they get a touch fussy." "The fuzz is fussy," Babe says dreamily. "The fuzz is our fussy friends. The fuzzy motherfuckers fuss." "Don't, Babe," Jill begs. "Don't pretend." "You let your old black mama have a buzz on," Babe says. "Don't I take good care of you mostly?" "How would the police know if this kid has a drink?" Rabbit says, willing to be indignant. Buchanan makes his high, short wheeze. "Friend Harry, they'd just have to turn their heads." "There are cops in here?" "Friend," and from the way he sidles closer, Harry feels he's found another father, "if it weren't for police spies, poor Jimbos wouldn't sell 2 beers a night. Police spies are the absolute backbone of our local lowlife. They got so many plants going, that's why they don't dare shoot in riots, for fear of killing one of their own." "Like over in New York?" Jill asks Rabbit, "Hey, you live in Brewer?" He sees that she doesn't like his being white in here, and smiles without answering. "Screw you, little girl." Buchanan answers for him. "Lady, does he live in Brewer? If he lived any more in Brewer, he'd be a walking advertisement. He'd be the Owl Pretzel Owl. I don't think this fella's ever gotten above 12th Street, have you, Harry?" "A few times. I was in Texas, in the Army, actually." "Did you get to fight?" Jill asks. Something scratchy here, but maybe like a kitten, it's the way of making contact. "I was all set to go to Korea," he says, "but they never sent me." Though at the time he was grateful, it has since eaten at him, become the shame of his life. He had never been a fighter, but now there is enough death in him so that, in a way, he wants to kill. Now Skeeter, Buchanan is saying, he's just back from Vietnam. "Why, he's so rude," Babe offers. "I couldn't tell if he was rude or not," Rabbit confesses. "That's nice," Buchanan says. "He was rude," Babe says. Jill's lemonade arrives. She is still girl enough to look happy when it is set before her. Cakes at the tea party. Her face lights up. A crescent of lime clings to the edge of the glass. She takes it off and sucks and makes a sour face. A child's plumpness has been drained from her before a woman's bones could grow and harden. She is the reddish type of fair. Her hair hangs dull, without fire, almost flesh color, or the color of the flesh of certain soft trees, yews or cedars. Small, soft ears peep through dearly, pale chips of eggshell. Harry feels protective, timidly. In her tension of small bones, she reminds him of Nelson. He asks her, "What do you do, Jill?" "Nothing much," she says. "Hang around." It had been square of him to ask, pushing. The blacks fit around her like shadows. "Jilly's a poor soul," Babe volunteers, stirring within her buzz. "She's fallen on evil ways." And she pats Rabbit's hand as if to say, "Don't you fall upon these ways." Young Jill, Buchanan clarifies, has run away from her home up there in Connecticut. Rabbit asks her, "Why would you do that?" "Why not? Let freedom ring." "Can I ask how old you are?" "You can ask." "I'm asking." Babe hasn't let go of Rabbit's hand. With the fingernail of her index finger, she is toying with the hairs on the back of his fist. It makes his teeth go cold for her to do that. "Not so old you couldn't be her daddy," Babe says. He is beginning to get the drift. They are presenting him with this problem. He is the consultant honky. The girl, too, unwilling as she is submitting to the interview. She inquires of him, only partly parrying, "How old are you?" 36. Divide by 2. 18, huh? "How long have you been on the run, away from your parents?" "Her daddy dead," Buchanan interposes softly. "Long enough, thank you." Her face pales, her freckles stand out sharply, blood dots that have dried brown. Her dry little lips tighten, her chin drifts toward him. She is pulling rank. He is Penn Villas, she is Penn Park. Rich kids make all the trouble. Long enough for what? Long enough to do some sick things. "Are you sick?" "I'm cured." Buchanan interposes. "Babe helped her out." "Babe is a beautiful person," Jill says. "I was really a mess when Babe took me in." "Jilly is my sweetie," Babe says. As suddenly as in playing, she moves from one tune to another. "Jilly is my baby love, and I'm her mama love," and takes her brown hands away from Harry's to encircle the girl's waist and hug her against the rooster-comb red of her dress. The two are women, though one is a prune and the other a milkweed. Jill pouts in pleasure. Her mouth is lovable when it moves, Rabbit thinks, the lower lip bumpy and dry as if chapped, though this is not winter but the humid height of summer. Buchanan is further explaining, "Fact of it is, this girl hasn't got no place regular to go. Couple weeks ago she comes in here not knowing I suppose the place was mostly for soul. A little pretty girl like this get in with some of the brothers, they would tear her apart limb by sweet limb." He has to chuckle. "So Babe takes her right away under her wing. Only trouble with that is," the fat man rustles closer, making the booth a squeeze, "Babe's place is none too big. And anyways," the child flares up, "anyways I'm not welcome." Her eyes widen. Rabbit has not seen their color before. They have been shadowy, moving slowly, as if their pink lids are tender, or as if rejecting instruction and inventing her own way of moving through the world. She has lost any vivid idea of what to be looking for. Her eyes are green, the dry, tired green, yet one of his favorite colors, of August grass. "Jilly, love," Babe says, hugging, "you the most welcome little white baby there could be." Buchanan is talking only to Rabbit, softer and softer. "You know, those things happen over York way. They could happen here. And how could we protect?" The smallest wave of his hand toward the girl lets the sentence gracefully hang. Harry is reminded of Stavros's gestures. Buchanan ends chuckling. "We be so busy keeping holes out of our own skins, dependin' where you get caught, being black a bad ticket both ways." Jill snaps, "I'll be all right. You two stop it now. Stop trying to sell me to this creep. I don't want him. He doesn't want me. Nobody wants me. That's all right. I don't want anybody." "Everybody wants somebody," Babe says. "I don't mind your hanging around my place. Some gentlemen mind, is all." Rabbit says, "Buchanan minds," and this perception astonishes them. The two blacks break into first shrill, then jingling laughter. and another stinger appears on the table between his hands, pale as lemonade. "Honey, it's just the visibility," Babe then adds sadly. "You make us ever so visible." A silence grows like the silence when a group of adults is waiting for a child to be polite. Sullenly, Jill asks Rabbit, "What do you do?" "Set type," Rabbit tells her. "Watch TV, sit around." "Harry here," Buchanan explains, "had a nasty shock the other day. His wife, for no good reason, upped and left him." "No reason at all?" Jill asks. Her mouth pouts forward, vexed and aggressive, yet her spark of interest dies before her breath is finished with the question. Rabbit thinks. "I think I bored her. Also, we didn't agree politically." "What about?" "The Vietnam War. I'm all for it." Jill snatches in her breath. Babe says, "I knew those knuckles looked bad." Buchanan offers to smooth it over. "Everybody at the plant is for it. We think you don't hold 'em over there, you'll have those black pajama fellas on the streets over here." Jill says to Rabbit seriously, "You should talk to Skeeter about it. He says it was a fabulous trip. He loved it." "I wouldn't know about that. I'm not saying it's pleasant to fight in or be caught in. I just don't like the kids making the criticisms. People say it's a mess, so we should get out. If you stayed out of every mess, you'd never get into anything." "Amen," Babe says. "Life is generally shit." Rabbit goes on, feeling himself get rabid. "I guess I don't much believe in college kids or the Viet Cong. I don't think they have any answers. I think they're minorities trying to bring down everything that halfway works. Halfway isn't all the way, but it's better than no way." Buchanan smooths on frantically. His upper lip is bubbling with sweat under his slit of a mustache. "I agree 99%. Enlightened self-interest is the phrase I like. The way I see enlightened self-interests, the best deal we're likely to get down here. I don't buy pie in the sky, whoever is slicing it. These young ones like Skeeter, they say all power to the people. You look around for the people, the only people around is them." "Because of Toms like you," Jill says. Buchanan blinks. His voice goes deeper, hurt. "I ain't no Tom, girl. That kind of talk doesn't help any of us. That kind of talk just shows how young you are. What I am is a man trying to get from point A to point B, from the cradle to the grave, hurting the fewest people I can. Just like Harry here, if you'd ask him. Just like your daddy, God rest his soul." Babe says, hugging the stubbornly limp girl, "I just likes Jilly's spunk. She's less afraid what to do with her life than fat old smelly you sitting there licking yourself like an old cigar end." But while talking, she keeps her eyes on Buchanan, as if his concurrence is to be desired. Mothers and fathers, they turn up everywhere. Buchanan explains to Jill with a nice levelness, "So that is the problem. Young Harry here lives in this fancy big house over in the fanciest part of West Brewer, all by himself, and never gets any tail." Harry protests, "I'm not that alone. I have a kid with me." "Man has to have tail," Buchanan is continuing. "Play, Babe," a dark voice shouts from a dark booth. Roof bobs his head and switches on the blue spot. Babe sighs and offers Jill what is left of Skeeter's joint. Jill shakes her head and gets out of the booth to let Babe out. Rabbit thinks the girl is leaving and discovers himself glad when she sits down again opposite him. He sips his stinger, and she chews the ice from her lemonade while Babe plays again. This time the boys in the pool room softly keep at their game. The clicking and the liquor and the music mix and make the space inside him very big, big enough to hold blue light and black faces and honeysuckle rose and stale smoke sweeter than alfalfa, and this apparition across the way, whose wrists and forearms are as it were translucent and belonging to another order of creature. She is not yet grown. Her womanliness is attached to her. It floats from her like a little zeppelin he can almost see, and his inside space expands to include beyond Jimbo's the whole world, with its arrowing wars and polychrome races, its continents shaped like ceiling stains, its strings of gravitational attraction attaching it to every star, its glory in space as of a blue marble swirled with clouds. Everything is warm, wet, still coming to birth, but himself and his home. which remains a strange, dry place, dry and cold and emptily spinning in the void of Penn Villas like a cast-off space capsule. He doesn't want to go there, but he must. He must. I must go, he says, rising. Hey, hey, Buchanan protests. The night hasn't even got itself turned around to get started yet. I ought to be home in case my kid can't stand the kid he's staying with. I promised I'd visit my parents tomorrow if they didn't keep my mother in the hospital for more tests. Babe will be sad you sneaking out. She took a shine to you. Maybe that other guy she took a shine to will be back. My guess is Babe takes a shine pretty easy. Don't you get nasty. No, I love her, Jesus, tell her. She plays like a whiz. This has been a terrific change of pace for me. He tries to stand, but the table edge confines him to a crouch. The booth tilts, and he rocks slightly, as if he is already in the slowly turning cold house he is heading toward. Jill stands up with him, obedient as a mirror. One of these times, Buchanan continues beneath them, maybe you can get to know Babe better. She is one good egg. I don't doubt it. He tells Jill, sit down. Aren't you going to take me with you? They want you to. Gee, I hadn't thought to. She sits down. Friend Harry, you've hurt the little girl's feelings. Nasty must be your middle name. Jill says, far as creeps like this are concerned, I have no feelings. I've decided he's queer anyway. Could be, Buchanan says. It would explain that wife. Come on, let me out of the booth. I'd like to take her. Then help yourself, friend, on me. Babe is playing time after time. I tell myself that I'm... Harry sags. The table edge is killing his thighs. Okay, kid, come along. I wouldn't dream of it. You'll be bored, he feels in honesty obliged to add. You've been had, she tells him. Jilly, now be gracious for the gentleman. Buchanan hastily pushes out of the booth, lest the combination tumble, and lets Harry slide out, and leans against him confidentially. Geezers. His breath rises bad from under the waxed needles. Problem is, he explains, the last explaining he will do tonight, it don't look that good, her being in here. Underage and all. The fuzz now, they aren't absolutely unfriendly, but they hold us pretty tight to the line, what with public opinion the way it is. So it's not that healthy for anybody. She's a poor child needs a daddy is the simple truth of it. Rabbit asks her, how'd he die? Jill says, heart, dropped dead in a New York theater lobby. He and my mother were seeing Hair. Okay, let's shove. To Buchanan, Rabbit says, how much for the drinks? Wow, they're just hitting me. On us, is the answer, accompanied by a wave of a palm the color of silver polish. On the black community. He has to wheeze and chuckle, struggling for solemnity. This is real big of you, man. You're a big man. See you at work Monday. Jilly, love, you be a good girl. We'll keep in touch. I bet. Disturbing to think that Buchanan works. We all work. Day selves and night selves. The belly hungers, the spirit hungers. Mouths munch, cunts swallow. Monstrous. Soul. He used to try to picture it when a child. A parasite like a tapeworm inside. A sprig of mistletoe hung from our bones, living on air. A jellyfish swaying between our lungs and our liver. Black men have more, bigger. Cocks like eels. Night feeders. Their touching underbelly smell on buses. Their dread of those clean, dry places where Harry must be. He wonders if he will be sick. Poison in those stingers on top of moonburgers. Babe shifts gears, lays out 6 chords like 6 black lead slugs slapping into the tray, and plays There's a Small Hotel with a Wishing Well. With this Jill, then, Rabbit enters the street. On his right, toward the mountains, Weiser stretches sallow under blue street lights. The Pinnacle Hotel makes a tattered blur. The back of the Sunflower Beer clock shows yellow neon petals. Otherwise, the great street is dim. He can remember when Weiser, with its 5 movie marquees and its medley of neon outlines, appeared as gaudy as a carnival midway. People would stroll, children between them. Now the downtown looks deserted, sucked dry by suburban shopping centers, and haunted by rapists. Local hoods assault elderly, last week's VAT had headlined. In the original version of the head, local had been black. They turn left toward the Running Horse Bridge. River moisture soothes his brow. He decides he will not be sick. Never, even as an infant, could stand it. Some guys, Ronnie Harrison for one, liked it. Throw up after a few beers or before a big game, joke about the corn between their teeth. But Rabbit needed to keep it down, even at the cost of a bellyache. He still carries from sitting in Jimbo's the sense of the world being inside him. He will keep it down. The city night air, the ginger of tar and concrete baked all day, truck traffic lifted from it like a lid, space between the headlights. Infrequent headlights stroke this girl, catching her white legs and thin dress as she hangs on the curb, hesitant. She asks, "Where's your car?" "I don't have any." "That's impossible." "My wife took it when she left me." "You didn't have two?" "No." This is really a rich kid. "I have a car," she says. "Where is it?" "I don't know." "How can you not know?" "I used to leave it on the street up near Babe's place off of Plum. I didn't know it was somebody's garage entrance, and one morning they had it taken away." "And you didn't go after it?" "I didn't have the money for any fine, and I'm scared of the police. They might check me out. The Stadies must have a bulletin on me." "Wouldn't the simplest thing for you be to go back to Connecticut?" "Let's not have any editorials," she says. "What didn't you like about it?" "It was all ego, sick ego." "Something pretty egotistical about running away, too." "Your mother must be miserable." The girl makes no answer, but crosses the street from Jimbo's to the beginning of the bridge. Rabbit has to follow. "What kind of car was it?" "A white Porsche." "Wow!" "My father gave it to me for my 17th birthday. My father-in-law runs the Toyota agency in town." They keep arriving at this place where a certain symmetry snips their exchanges short. Having crossed the bridge, they stand on a little pond of sidewalk squares where, in this age of cars, few feet tread. The bridge was poured in the 30s. Sidewalks, broad balustrades, and lamp plinths of reddish rough concrete. Above them, an original light standard, iron-fluted and floral toward the top, marks stately but unlit the entrance to the bridge, illumined since recently with cold bars of violet on tall aluminum stems rooted in the center of the walkway. Her white dress is unearthly in this light. A man's name is embedded in a bronze plaque, illegible. Jill asks impatiently, "Well, how shall we do?" He assumes she means transportation. He is too shaky still, too full of smoke and stinger, to look beyond that. The way to the center of Brewer, where taxis prowl and doze, feels blocked. In the gloom beyond Jimbo's neon nimbus, brown shadows, local hoods, giggle in doorways, watching. Rabbit says, "Let's walk across the bridge and hope for a bus. The last one comes around 11. Maybe on Saturdays it's later. Anyway, if none comes at all, it's not too far to walk to my place. My kid does it all the time." "I love walking," she says. She touchingly adds, "I'm strong. You mustn't baby me." The balustrade was poured in an X pattern echoing rail fences. These X's click past his legs, not rapidly enough. The gritty breadth he keeps touching runs tepid. Flecks as if of rock salt had been mixed into it. Not done that way anymore, not done this color, reddish, the warmth of flesh. Her hair also, cut cedar color, lifting as she hurries to keep up. "What's the rush?" "Don't you hear them?" Cars thrust by, rolling balls of light before them. An anvil drop below to the black floor of the river. White shards, boat shapes. Behind them, pattering feet, the press of pursuit. Rabbit dares stop and peek backwards. Two brown figures are chasing them. Their shadows shorten and multiply and lengthen and simplify again as they fly beneath the successive mauve angels in and out of isthmuses of shadow. One is brandishing something white in his hand. It glitters. Harry's heart jams. He wants to make water. The West Brewer end of the bridge is forever away. Local man stabbed defending unknown girl. He squeezes her arm and tries to make her run. Her skin is smooth and narrow, yet tepid, like the balustrade. She pants, "Cut it out," and pulls away. He turns and finds, unexpectedly, what he had forgotten was there, courage. His body fits into the hard-shell blindness of meeting a threat, rigid, only his eyes soft spots, himself a sufficient shield. Kill! The Negroes halt under the near-purple moon and back a step, frightened. They are young, their bodies liquid. He is bigger than they. The white flash in the hand of one is not a knife, but a pocketbook of pearls. The bearer shambles forward with it. His eye whites and the pearls look lavender in the light. "This yours, lady?" "Oh, yes. Babe sent us after." "Oh, thank you. Thank her. We scare somebody?" "Not me. Him." "Yeah. Dude scared us, too." "Sorry about that," Rabbit volunteers. "Spooky bridge." "Okay. Okay, Chuck." Their mauve eyeballs roll, their purple hands flip as their legs in the stitched skin of Levi's seek the rhythm of leaving. They giggle together. And also at this moment 2 giant trailer trucks pass on the bridge, headed in opposite directions. Their rectangles thunderously overlap and, having clapped the air between them, hurtle each on its way, corrosive and rumbling. The bridge trembles. The Negro boys have disappeared. Rabbit walks on with Jill. The pot and brandy and fear in him enhance the avenue he knows too well. No bus comes. Her dress flutters in the corner of his eyes as he tries, his skin stretched and his senses shuffling and circling like a cloud of gnats, to make talk. "Your home was in Connecticut." "A place called Stonington." "Near New York?" "Near enough. Daddy used to go down Mondays and come back Fridays. He loved to sail. He said about Stonington, it was the only town in the state that faces the open sea. Everything else is on the Sound." "And he died, you said." "My mother, she has Parkinson's disease." "Look, do you like to talk this much? Why don't we just walk? I've never been in West Brewer before. It's nice." "What's nice about it?" "Everything. It doesn't have a glorious past like the city does, so it's not so disappointed. Look at that, Burger Bliss. Isn't it beautiful, all goldy and plasticky, with that purple fire inside?" "That's where I ate tonight." "How was the food?" "Awful. Maybe I taste everything too much. I should start smoking again. My kid loves the place." "How old did you say he was?" 13. He's small for his age." "That still makes him 13. "Yeah, I try not to ride him."
"What would you ride him about?"
"Oh, he's bored by things I used to love. I don't think he's having much fun. He never goes outdoors."
"Hey, what's your name?"
"Harry."
"Hey, Harry, would you mind feeding me?"
"Sure, no. At home? I don't know what we have in the icebox. Refrigerator."
"I mean over there, at the burger place."
"Oh, sure, terrific. I'm sorry. I assumed you ate."
"Maybe I did.
I tend to forget material details like that, but I don't think so. All I feel inside is lemonade." She selects a cashew burger for 85 cents and a strawberry milkshake. In the withering light, she devours the burger, and he orders her another. She smiles apologetically. She has small, inturned teeth, grayish and spaced with hairline gaps. Nice. "Usually I try to rise above eating."
"Why?"
"It's so ugly. Don't you think it's one of the uglier things we do?"
"It has to be done."
"That's your philosophy, isn't it?" Even in this garishly lit place, her face has about it something shadowy and elusive, something prematurely aged or still to be formed. Finished, she wipes her fingers one by one on a paper napkin and says decisively, "Thank you very much." He pays. She clutches the purse. But what is in it? Credit cards, diagrams for the revolution. He has had coffee to keep himself awake. Be up all night fucking this poor kid. Upholding the honor of middle-aged squares, different races. In China they used to tell in the army, the women put razor blades in their cunts in case the Japanese tried rapes. Rabbit's scrotum shrivels at the thought. Enjoy the walk. They march down Wiser, the store windows dark but for burglar lights, the Acme parking lot empty but for scattered neckers, the movie marquee changed from 2001 to True Grit, short enough to get it all on. They cross the street at a blinking yellow to Emberley Avenue, which then becomes Emberley Drive, which becomes Vista Crescent. The development is dark. Talk about spooky, she says. I think it's the flatness, he says. The town I grew up in, no two houses were on the same level. There's such a smell of plumbing, somehow. Actually, the plumbing is none too good. This smoky creature at his side has halved his weight. He floats up the steps to the porchlet, knees vibrating. Her profile by his shoulder is fine and cool as the face on the old dime. The key to the door of 3-stepped windows nearly flies out of his hand, it feels so magical. Whatever he expects when he flicks on the inside hall light, it is not the same old furniture. The fake cobbler's bench, the sofa, and the silver thread chair facing each other like two bulky drunks too tired to go upstairs, the blank TV screen and its box of metal painted with wood grain, the see-through shelves with nothing on them. Wow, Jill says, this is really tacky. Rabbit apologizes. We never really picked out the furniture, it just kind of happened. Janice was always going to do different curtains. Jill asks, was she a good wife? His answer is nervous. The question plants Janice back in the house, quiet in the kitchen, crouching at the head of the stairs, listening. Not too bad. Not much on organizational ability, but until she got mixed up with this other guy, at least she kept plugging away. She used to drink too much, but got that under control. We had a tragedy about 10 years ago that sobered her up, I guess. Sobered me up, too. A baby died. How? An accident. That's sad. Where do we sleep? Why don't you take the kid's room? I guess he won't be back. The kid he's staying with, he's a real spoiled jerk. I told Nelson if it got too painful, he should just come home. I probably should have been here to answer the phone. What time is it? How about a beer? Penniless, she is wearing a little wristwatch that must have cost $100 at least. 12:10, she says. Don't you want to sleep with me? Huh? That's not your idea of bliss, is it? Sleeping with a creep? You are a creep, but you just fed me. Forget it. On the white community. Huh? And you have this sweet, funny family side, always worrying about who needs you. Yeah, well, it's hard to know sometimes. Probably nobody if I could face up to it. In answer to your question, sure, I'd like to sleep with you, if I won't get hauled in for statutory rape. You're really scared of the law, aren't you? I try to keep out of its way, is all. I promise you on a Bible. Do you have a Bible? There used to be one somewhere that Nelson got for going to Sunday school, when he did. We've kind of let all that go. Just promise me. I promise you I'm 18. I'm legally a woman. I am not bait for a black gang. You will not be mugged or blackmailed. You may fuck me. Somehow you're making me almost cry. You're awfully scared of me. Let's take a bath together and then see how we feel about it. He laughs. By then I guess I'll feel pretty gung-ho about it. She is serious. A serious, small-faced animal sniffing out her new lair. Where's the bathroom? Take off your clothes here. The command startles her. Her chin dents and her eyes go wide with fright. No reason he should be the only scared person here. Rich bitch calling his living room tacky, standing on the rug where he and Janice last made love. Jill skins out of her clothes. She kicks off her sandals and strips her dress upward. She is wearing no bra. Her tits tug upward, drop back, give him a headless stare. She is wearing bikini underpants, black lace, in a pattern too fine to read. Not pausing a moment for him to drink her in, she pulls the elastic down with 2 thumbs, wriggles and steps out. Where Janice had a springy triangle encroaching on the insides of her thighs when she didn't shave, Jill has scarcely a shadow, amber fuzz dust, darkened toward the center to an upright, dainty mane. the horns of her pelvis like starved cheekbones, her belly a child's, childless, her breasts in some lights as she turns scarcely exist. Being naked elongates her neck, a true ripeness there in the unhurried curve from base of skull to small of back, and in the legs which link to the hips with knots of fat and keep a plumpness all the way down. Her ankles are less slim than Janice's, but hey, she is naked in this room, his room, this really strange creature, too trusting. She bends to pick up her clothes. She treads lightly on the carpet as if watchful for tacks. She stands an arm's length from him, her mouth pouting prim, a fleck of dry skin on the lower lip. And you? Upstairs. He undresses in his bedroom, where he always does. In the bathroom on the other side of the partition, water begins to cry, to sing, to splash. He looks down and has nothing of a hard-on. In the bathroom, he finds her bending over to test the temperature mix at the faucet, a tuft between her buttocks. From behind, she seems a boy's slim back wedged into the upside-down valentine of a woman's satin rear. He yearns to touch her, to touch the satin symmetry, and does. It stings his fingertips like glass we don't expect is there. Jill doesn't deign to flinch or turn at his touch, testing the water to her satisfaction. His cock stays small, but has stopped worrying. Their bath is all too gentle, silent, liquid, and pure. They are each attentive. He soaps and rinses her breasts as if their utter cleanness challenges him to make them even cleaner. She kneels and kneads his back as if a year of working weariness were in it. She blinds him in drenched cloth. She counts the gray hairs, 6 in the hair of his chest. Still, even as they stand to dry each other and he looms above her like a Viking, he cannot shake the contented impotence of his sensation that they are the ends of spotlight beams thrown on the clouds, that their role is to haunt this house like two bleached creatures on a television set entertaining an empty room. She glances at his groin. I don't turn you on exactly, do I? You do, too much. It's still too strange. I don't even know your last name. Pendleton. She drops to her knees on the bathroom rug and takes his penis into her mouth. He backs away as if bitten. Wait! Jill looks up at him crossly, looks up the slope of his slack gut, a cranky, puzzled child with none of the answers in the last class of the day, her mouth slick with forbidden candy. He lifts her as he would a child, but she is longer than a child, and her armpits are scratchy and deep. He kisses her on the mouth. No gumdrops. Her lips harden, and she twists her thin face away, saying into his shoulder, I don't turn anybody on much. No tits. My mother has nifty tits. Maybe that's my trouble. Tell me your trouble, he says, and leads her by the hand toward the bedroom. Oh, Jesus, one of those troubleshooters. From the look of it, you're in worse shape than me. You can't even respond when somebody takes off their clothes. First times are hard. You need to absorb somebody a little first. He darkens the room, and they lie on the bed. She offers to embrace him again, sharp teeth and knees, anxious to have it done, but he smooths her onto her back and massages her breasts, plumping them up, circling. These aren't your trouble, he croons. These are lovely. Down below, he feels himself easily stiffening, clotting, cream in the freezer. Clinic for runaways opened. Fathers do duty on nights off. Relaxing, Jill grows stringy. Tendons and resentments come to the surface. You should be fucking my mother. She really is good with men. She thinks they're the be-all and end-all. I know she was playing around even before Daddy died. Is that why you ran away? You wouldn't believe if I really told you. Tell me. A guy I went with tried to get me into heavy drugs. That's not so unbelievable. Yeah, but his reason was crazy. Look, you don't want to hear this crap. You're up now. Why don't you just give it to me? Yeah, but his reason was crazy. Look, you don't want to hear this crap. You're up now, so why don't you just give it to me? Tell me his reason. You see, when I'd trip, I'd see, like, God. He never would. Just saw pieces of, like, old movies that didn't add up. What kind of stuff did he give you? Pot? Oh, no, listen. Pot is just like having a Coke or something. Acid, when he could get it. Strange pills. He'd rob doctors' cars to get their samples and then mix them to see what happened. They have names for all these pills. Purple Hearts, Dollies, I don't know what all. Then after he stole this syringe, he'd inject stuff. He wouldn't even know what it was half the time. It was wild. I would never let him break my skin. I figured anything went in by the mouth, I could throw it up, but anything went in my veins, I had no way to get rid of it. It could kill me. He said that was part of the kick. He was really freaked. But he had this, power over me. I ran. Has he tried to follow you? A freak coming up the stairs. Green teeth, poisonous needles. Rabbit's penis has wilted, listening. No, he's not the type. Toward the end, I don't think he knew me from Adam, really. All he was thinking about was his next fix. Junkies are like that. They get to be bores. You think they're talking to you or making love or whatever, and then you realize they're looking over your shoulder for the next fix. You realize you're nothing. He didn't need me to find God for him. If he met God right on the street, he'd have tried to hustle him for money enough for a couple bags. What did he look like? Oh, about 5'10", brown hair down to his shoulders, slightly wavy when he brushed it, a neat build. Even after Smack had pulled all the color from him, he had a wonderful frame. His back was really marvelous, with long sloping shoulders and all these ripply little ribby bumps behind, here. She touches him, but is seeing the other. He had been a runner in junior high. I meant God. Oh, God. He changed. He was different every time. But you always knew it was him. Once I remember something like the inside of a big lily, only magnified 1,000 times, a sort of glossy, shining funnel that went down and down. I can't talk about it. She rolls over and kisses him on the mouth feverishly. His inability to respond seems to excite her. She gets up in a crouch, and like a raccoon drinking water, kisses his chin, his chest, his navel, goes down, and stays. Her mouth nibbling is so surprising he fights the urge to laugh. Her fingers on the hair of his thighs tickle like the thread of ice on his skin. The hair of her head makes a tent on his belly. He pushes at her, but she sticks at it. Might as well relax. The ceiling. The garage light shining upwards shows a stained patch where chimney flashing let the rain in. Must turn the garage light off. Though maybe a good burglar preventive. These junkies around steal anything. He wonders how Nelson made out. Asleep, boy sleeps on his back, mouth open, frightening. Skin seems to tighten on the bone, like in pictures of Buchenwald. Always tempted to wake him, prove he's okay. Missed the 11 o'clock news tonight. Vietnam death count, race riots probably somewhere. Funny man, Buchanan. No plan exactly, just feeling his way. Began by wanting to sell him Babe. Maybe that's the way to live. Janice in bed got hot like something cooking, but this kid stays cool. A prep school kid applying what she knows. It works. That's nice, she says, stroking the extent of his extended cock, glistening with her spittle. You're nice, he tells her, not to lose faith. I like it, she tells him, making you get big and strong. Why bother, he asks. I'm a creep. Want to come into me, the girl asks. But when she lies on her back and spreads her legs, her lack of self-consciousness again strikes him as sad and puts him off, as does the way she winces when he seeks to enter, so that he grows small. Her blurred face widens its holes and says with a rising inflection, You don't like me. While he fumbles for an answer, she falls asleep. It is the answer to a question he hadn't thought to ask. Was she tired? Of course, just as she was hungry. A guilty grief expands his chest muscles and presses on the backs of his eyes. He gets up, covers her with a sheet. The nights are growing cool. August covers the sun's retreat. The cold moon, scraped wallpaper, pumice stone under a flashbulb. Footprints stay for a billion years, not a fleck of dust blows. The kitchen linoleum is cold on his feet. He switches off the garage light and spreads peanut butter on 6 saltines, making 3 sandwiches. Since Janice left, he and Nelson shop for what they like, keep themselves stocked in salt and starch. He eats the crackers, sitting in the living room, not in the silver thread chair, but the old brown mossy one that they've had since their marriage. He chews and stares at the uninhabited aquarium of the television screen. Ought to smash it. Poison. He read somewhere the reason kids today are so crazy, they were brought up on television. 2 minutes of this, 2 minutes of that. Cracker crumbs adhere to the hair of his chest. 6 gray. Must be more than that. What did Janice do for Stavros she didn't do for him? Only so much you can do. 3 holes, 2 hands. Is she happy? He hopes so. Poor mutt. He somehow squelched her potential. Let things bloom. The inside of a great lily. He wonders if Jesus will be waiting for Mom, a man in a nightgown at the end of a glossy shoot. He hopes so. He remembers he must work tomorrow, then remembers he mustn't. It is Sunday. Sunday, that dog of a day. Ought to go to church, but he can't get himself up to believe it. Ruth used to mock him in church. In those days he could get himself up for anything. Ruth and her chicken farm. Wonders if she can stand it. Hopes so. He pushes himself up from the fat chair, brushes crumbs from his chest hair. Some fall and catch further down. Wonder why it was made so curly there. Springy. They could stuff mattresses with it if people would shave like nuns and wigs. Upstairs, the body in his bed sinks his heart like a bar of silver. He has forgotten she was on his hands. Bad knuckles. The poor kid, she stirs and tries to make love to him again, gives him a furry-mouthed French kiss and falls asleep at it again. A day's work for a day's lodging, Puritan ethic. He masturbates, picturing Peggy Fasnacht. What will Nelson think? Jill sleeps late. At 10:15, Rabbit is rinsing his cereal bowl and coffee cup, and Nelson is at the kitchen screen door, red-faced from pumping his bicycle. "Hey, Dad!" "Shh! Why?" "Your noise hurts my head." "Did you get drunk last night?" "What sort of talk is that? I never get drunk." "Mrs. Fasnacht cried after you left." "Probably because you and Billy are such brats." "She said you were going to meet somebody in Brewer." "She shouldn't be telling kids things like that. These divorced women turn their sons into little husbands. Cry, shit, and change Tampax right in front of them. Some guy I work with at Verity. We listened to some colored women play the piano, and then I came home. We stayed up past 12 o'clock watching a wicked neat movie about guys landing somewhere in boats that open up in front, someplace like Norway. Normandy. That's right. Were you there? No, I was your age when it happened. You could see the machine gun bullets making the water splash up all in a row. It was a blast. Hey, try to keep your voice down. Why, Dad? Is Mommy back? Is she? No. Have you had any breakfast? Yeah, she gave us bacon and French toast. I learned how to make it. It's easy. You just smash some eggs and take bread and fry it. I'll make you some sometime. Thanks. Mom Angstrom used to make it. I hate her cooking. Everything tastes greasy. Didn't you used to hate her cooking, Dad? I liked it. It was the only cooking I knew. Billy Fasnacht says she's dying. Is she? She has a disease, but it's very slow. You've seen how she is. She may get better. They have new things for it all the time. I hope she does die, Dad. No, you don't. Don't say that. Mrs. Fasnacht tells Billy you should say everything you feel. I'm sure she tells him a lot of crap. Why do you say crap? I think she's nice once you get used to her eyes. Don't you like her, Dad? She thinks you don't. Peggy's okay. What's on your schedule? When was the last time you went to Sunday school? The boy circles around to place himself in his father's view. There's a reason I rushed home.
Mr. Fosnacht is going to take Billy fishing on the river in a boat some guy he knows owns, and Billy asked if I could come along, and I said I'd have to ask you. Okay, Dad? I had to come home anyway to get a bathing suit and clean pants. That fucking mini-bike got these all greasy." All around him, Rabbit hears language collapsing. He says weakly, "I didn't know there was fishing in the river." "They've cleaned it up," Ollie says, "at least above Brewer. He says they stock it with trout up around Lengel's Island." "Ollie, is it? That's hours from here. You've never fished. Remember how bored you were with the ball game we took you to?" "That was a boring game, Dad. Other people were playing it. This is something you do yourself. Huh, Dad? Okay? I gotta get my bathing suit, and I said I'd be back on the bicycle by 10:30. The kid is at the foot of the stairs. "Stop him." Rabbit calls, "What am I going to do all day if you go off?" "You can go visit Mom. She'd rather see just you anyway." The boy takes it that he has secured permission and pounds upstairs. His scream from the landing freezes his father's stomach. Rabbit moves to the foot of the stairs to receive Nelson in his arms. But the boy, safe on the next-to-bottom step, halts there, horrified. "Dad, something moved in your bed." "My bed? I looked in and saw it." Rabbit offers, "Maybe it was just the air conditioner fan lifting the sheets." "Dad!" The child's pallor begins to recede as some flaw in the horror of this begins to dawn. "It had long hair, and I saw an arm. Aren't you going to call the police?" "No. Let's let the poor old police rest. It's Sunday." "It's okay, Nelson. I know who it is." "You do?" The boy's eyes sink upon themselves defensively as his brain assembles what information he has about long-haired creatures in bed. He is trying to relate this contraption of half-facts to the figure of his father looming, a huge riddle in an undershirt, before him. Rabbit offers, "It's a girl who's run away from home, and I somehow got stuck with her last night." "Is she going to live here?" "Not if you don't want me to," Jill's voice composedly calls from the stairs. She has come down wrapped in a sheet. Sleep has made her more substantial. Her eyes are fresh, wet grass now. She says to the boy, "I'm Jill. You're Nelson. Your father talks about you all the time." She advances toward him in her sheet like a little Roman senator, her hair tucked under behind, her forehead shining. Nelson stands his ground. Rabbit is struck to see that they are nearly the same height. "Hi," the kid says. "He does?" "Oh, yes," Jill goes on, showing her class, becoming no doubt her own mother, a woman pouring out polite talk in an unfamiliar home, flattering vases, curtains. "You are very much on his mind. You're very fortunate to have such a protective father." The kid looks over with parted lips. Christmas morning. He doesn't know what it is, but he wants to like it before it's unwrapped. Tucking her sheet about her tighter, Jill moves them into the kitchen, towing Nelson along on the thread of her voice. "You're lucky you're going on a boat. I love boats. Back home we had a 22-foot sloop." "What's a sloop?" "It's a sailboat with one mast." "Some have more?" "Of course. Schooners and yawls. A schooner has the big mast behind. A yawl has the big one up front." "We had a yawl once, but it was too much work. You needed another man, really." "You used to sail?" "All summer until October." "Not only that. In the spring we all used to have to scrape it and caulk it and paint it. I liked that almost the best. We all used to work at it together, my parents and me and my brothers." "How many brothers did you have?" "3. The middle one was about your age. 13? He nods silently. "He was my favorite. Is my favorite." A bird outside hoarsely weeps in sudden agitation. "Cat?" The refrigerator purrs. Nelson abruptly volunteers, "I had a sister once, but she died." "What was her name?" His father has to answer for him. "Rebecca." Still Jill doesn't look toward him, but concentrates on the boy. "May I eat breakfast, Nelson?" "Sure. I don't want to take the last of your favorite breakfast cereal or anything." "You won't. I'll show you where we keep them. Don't take the Rice Krispies. They're 1,000 years old and taste like floor fluff. The Raisin Bran and Alphabets are okay. We bought them this week at the Acme." "Who does the shopping, you or your father?" "Oh, we share. I meet him on the parking lot after work sometimes.
When do you see your mother?
A lot of times. Weekends, sometimes I stay over in Charlie Stavros's apartment. He has a real gun in his bureau. It's okay. He has a license. I can't go over there this weekend because they've gone to the shore.
Where's the shore?
Delight that she is so dumb creases the corners of Nelson's mouth. In New Jersey. Everybody calls it just the shore. We used to go to Wildwood sometimes, but Dad hated the traffic too much.
That's one thing I miss, Jill says, the smell of the sea. Where I grew up, the town is on a peninsula with sea on 3 sides.
Hey, shall I make you some French toast? I just learned how.
Jealousy, perhaps, makes Rabbit impatient with this scene. His son, in spite of his smallness, bony and dominating and alert, Jill in her sheet looking like one of those cartoon figures, Justice or Liberty or Morning Peace. He goes outside to bring in the Sunday Triumph, sits reading the funnies in the sunshine on the porchlet steps until the bugs get too bad, comes back into the living room and reads at random about the Egyptians, the Phillies, the Onassis. From the kitchen comes sizzling and giggling and whispering. He is in the garden section. Scorn not the modest goldenrod, dock, and tansy that grow in carefree profusion in fields and roadside throughout these August days. Carefully dried and arranged, they will form attractive bouquets to brighten the winter months around the corner, when the kid comes in with milk on his mustache and, wide-eyed, pressingly, with a new kind of energy, asks, "Hey, Dad, can she come along on the boat? I've called up Billy and he says his father won't mind, only we have to hurry up." "Maybe I mind."
"Dad, don't."
And Harry reads his son's taut face to mean, "She can hear. She's all alone. We must be nice to her. We must be nice to the poor, the weak, the black. Love is here to stay." Monday, Rabbit is setting the VAT front page. Widow, 67, raped and robbed. 3 black youths held. Police authorities revealed Saturday that they are holding for questioning 2 black minors and Wendell Phillips, 19, of 42B Plum Street, in connection with the brutal assault of an unidentified elderly white woman late Thursday night. The conscienceless crime, the latest in a series of similar incidents in the 3rd Ward, aroused residents of the neighborhood to organize a committee of protest which appeared before Friday's City Council session. Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe on the streets anymore, said the committee spokesman, Bernard Fogel, to VAT reporters. Nobody's safe, not even in our own homes. Through the clatter, Harry feels a tap on his shoulder and looks around. Payasek looking worried. "Angstrom, telephone." "Who the hell?" He feels obliged to say this as apology for being called at work on Verity time. "A woman," Payasek says, not placated. "Who?" "Jill. Last night, her hair still damp from the boat ride tickled his belly as she managed to make him come, was in trouble. They had kidnapped her, the police, the blacks, or Peggy Fosnacht was calling up to offer supper again, or his mother had taken a turn for the worse, and with her last heartbeats had dialed this number. He is not surprised she would want to speak to him instead of his father. He has never doubted she loves him most. The phone is in Payasek's little office, 3 walls of frosted glass, on the desk with the parts catalogs. These old Mergenthalers are always breaking down, and the spindled dead copy. "Hello? Hi, sweetie, guess who?" "Janice. How was the shore?" "Crowded and muggy. How was it here?" "Pretty good." "So I hear. I hear you went out in a boat." "Yeah, it was the kid's idea. He got me invited by Ollie. We went up the river as far as Lengel's Island. We didn't catch much. The state put some trout in, but I guess the river's still too full of coal silt. My nose is so sunburned I can't touch it." "I hear you had a lot of people in the boat." 9 or so. Ollie runs around with this musical crowd. We had a picnic up at the old camp meeting ground, near Stogie's Quarry, you know, where that witch lived so many years. Ollie's friends all got out guitars and played. It was nice." "I hear you brought a guest, too." "Who'd you hear that from?" "Peggy told me."
Billy told her. He was all turned on about it. He said Nelson brought a girlfriend. Beats a mini-bike, huh? Harry, I don't find this amusing. Where did you find this girl? She's a go-go dancer in here at the shop for the lunch hour. The union demands it. Where, Harry? Her weary, dismissive insistence pleases him. She is growing in confidence like a child at school. He confesses, I sort of picked her up in a bar. Well, how long is she going to stay? I haven't asked. These kids don't make plans the way we used to. They aren't so scared of starving. Hey, I gotta get back to the machine. Payasik doesn't like our being called here, by the way. I don't intend to make a practice of it. I called you at work because I didn't want Nelson to overhear. Harry, now are you listening to me? Sure, to who else? I want that girl out of my home. I don't want Nelson exposed to this sort of thing. What sort of thing? You mean the you and Stavros sort of thing? Charlie is a mature man. He has lots of nieces and nephews, so he's very understanding with Nelson. This girl sounds like a little animal out of her head with dope. That's how Billy described her? After she talked to Billy, Peggy called up Ollie for a better description. And that was his description? Gee. They got along famously at the time. She was better looking than those two old crows Ollie had along, I tell you. Harry, you're horrible. I consider this a very negative development. I suppose I have no control over how you dispose of your sexual needs, but I will not have my son corrupted. He's not corrupted. She's got him to help with the dishes. That's more than we could ever do. She's like a sister to him. And what is she to you, Harry? When he is slow to answer, she repeats, her voice taunting, aching like her mother's. Harry, what is she to you? A little wifey? He thinks and tells her, Come on back to the house. I'm sure she'll go. Now Janice thinks. Finally she states, If I come back to the house, it'll be to take Nelson away. Try it, he says, and hangs up. He sits a minute in Payasik's chair to give the phone a chance to ring. It does. He picks it up. Yeah? Janice says, near tears, Harry, I don't like to tell you this, but if you'd been adequate, I would never have left. You drove me to it. I didn't know what I was missing, but now that I have it, I know. I refuse to accept all the blame. I really do. Okay. No blame assigned. Let's keep in touch. I want that girl away from my son. They're getting along fine. Relax. I'll sue you. I'll take you to court. Fine. After the stunts you've been pulling, it'll at least give the judge a laugh. That's my house legally. At least half of it is. Tell me which my half is, and I'll try to keep Jill in it. Janice hangs up. Maybe using Jill's name had hurt. He doesn't wait for another ring this time, and leaves the cubicle of frosted glass. The trembling in his hands, which feel frightened and inflated, merges with the clatter of the machines, as his body sweat is lost in the smell of oil and ink. He resettles himself at his machine and garbles 3 lines before he can put her phone call in the back of his mind. He supposes Stavros can get her legal advice, but far from feeling Stavros as one of the enemy camp, he counts on him to keep this mad woman, his wife, under control. Through her body, they have become brothers. Jill, through the succession of nights, adjusts Rabbit's body to hers. He cannot overcome his fear of using her body as a woman's. Her cunt stings is part of it. He never forces his way into her without remembering those razor blades. But she, beginning the damp-haired night after the boat ride, perfects ways with her fingers and mouth to bring him off. Small curdled puddles of his semen then appear on her skin, and though easily wiped away, leave in his imagination a mark like an acid burn on her shoulders, her throat, the small of her back. He has the vision of her entire, slender, fair, flexible body being eventually covered with these invisible burns, like a napalmed child in the newspapers. And he, on his side, attempting with hands or mouth to reciprocate, is politely dissuaded, pushed away, reassured she has already come, serving him, or merely asked for the mute pressure of a thigh between hers, and after some few minutes during which he can detect no spasm of relief, thanked. The August nights are sticky and close.
When they lie on their backs, the ceiling of heavy air seems a foot above their faces. A car, loud on the soft tar and loose gravel, slides by. A mile away across the river, a police siren bleats, a new sound, more frantic than the old rising and falling cry. Nelson turns on a light, makes water, flushes the toilet, turns out the light with a snap close to their ear.